Hey, good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Mark Hemingway joins us at 5:30 from Real Clear Investigations as Kamala Harris's campaign attempts to rig social media platforms to her benefit. It's not election meddling or anything. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Associated Press headline today: Supreme Court's conservative justices allow Virginia to resume its purge of voter registrations. Oh, that's an edifying headline. That tells you the whole story, doesn't it? Nope, not even close. Virginia has been removing non-citizens from the voter rolls who admit that they are non-citizens. This is open and shut. It's about as open and shut as you can possibly get. And the Supreme Court, thankfully, today announced that Virginia does not have to force non-citizens to stay on the voter rolls, which is what the Biden administration wants. For more on this, I want to bring in Jason Snead now, the executive director of the Honest Elections Project. He joins us on the phone. Hello, Jason.
Thanks for having me on.
Jason, it's maddening that it had to even reach this level, but what does today's decision tell us?
Well, I think today's decision tells us that the district court judge that actually ordered the state of Virginia to abandon a nearly 20-year-old law and put non-citizens back on the rolls was wrong. And I think it tells us exactly how much of a reach this lawsuit by the Biden-Harris administration was to come in at the 11th hour and try to disrupt a routine list maintenance process that has actually used self-identification of non-citizens to remove people who are not eligible from voting, to come in at the 11th hour to disrupt that process and to try to get non-citizens put on the rolls is absurd on its face, and I think the Supreme Court just basically told us as much.
Yeah, and so the court, as a technical matter, is intervening here only for a moment. It was like an unsigned opinion, although all of the lefty justices declared that they were dissenting. They were against this. But they just decided, no, you can't force Virginia to do this. It's perfectly fine right now while this is litigated for those non-citizens to be removed from the voter rolls.
That's right. And there was no real reasoning here. But what we can probably read into this is that the Purcell doctrine is alive and well. And for your readers, or excuse me, for your listeners who don't know what that is, there is a long-standing principle that federal courts should not be intervening at the last minute close to an election and changing election procedures, because however well-intentioned your order may be, if you're changing the rules at the 11th hour, you're risking chaos, you're risking confusion on the part of voters and on the part of the officials that are responsible for running the election.
Yes.
So it's better not to intervene, and unfortunately the district court judge decided that she was going to intervene, and the judge decided that Virginia needed to change its policy. The Supreme Court simply allowed this 18-year-old law to remain in effect in Virginia, and I think that's what you can read into this opinion.
Also, there are no barriers to voting for eligible voters in Virginia. With this decision, the left has been making a claim, well, there may be some actual eligible voters on the list here that have been removed. A little hard to believe, given that the governor keeps telling us that everybody actually affirmed that they're non-citizens. But even if that were the case, Jason Snead, Virginia has same-day voter registration. You can register to vote and vote at the very same time in Virginia's polls. There's no barriers for real voters to cast ballots.
Well, that's 100% correct. And in fact, this gets to one of the lies that we're constantly told about these so-called voter purges. You know, the left likes to pretend that if you're cleaning up the voter rolls, that you're actually going to be taking lawful, eligible citizens off the rolls and denying them the right to vote. And that's just not the case. In Virginia, you have same-day registration, and you can vote a provisional ballot. And if you're a qualified, eligible voter, then that ballot will be counted. There are protections in place to ensure that lawful citizens are not going to be disenfranchised. But I will tell you what does disenfranchise lawful citizens is allowing non-citizens or any other ineligible individuals to cast illegal votes. When those votes are cast, citizens who have cast a lawful ballot are disenfranchised. And that's why what Virginia has done is so important for protecting the integrity of our elections.
I mean, what is the message that this sends, though, that the Biden-Harris administration is fighting to have foreign nationals on the voter rolls? I mean, it seems to me that this is political malpractice, too, that they would do this, because it conveys to the public, I mean, so long as media outlets report it in any way accurately. I just read the Associated Press not doing that. It conveys to the public that they're not actually standing up for American voters. They're actually for watering down those votes with foreign nationals.
Yeah, I think that the most charitable read of what they've done is virtue signal to their political allies that they're fighting a purge of non-citizens. And I think it's incredibly telling that the way that you virtue signal to the left these days is to actually keep non-citizens on the rolls. But, look, at a minimum, it suggests that the Biden Justice Department is okay if non-citizens cast ballots in our elections. And at worst, it suggests that they actually want them to cast ballots in our elections, because there's no other way, there's no other outcome from an action where you're actually getting non-citizens added to the rolls. And here's the real rub here, right? There are two victims when non-citizens cast illegal votes. One are the citizens who are disenfranchised, and the other are the non-citizens themselves. If this order by this judge had been allowed to go through and those non-citizens had been put back on the rolls, it's entirely possible that a non-citizen would vote believing that it was okay because, after all, the Biden Justice Department and a federal judge put them on the rolls. If they do that, though, they are committing a felony. And if that's a person who wants to become a citizen someday, that felony can end that dream and can get them deported.
Yes.
So that's the real rub. The Biden-Harris administration is telegraphing to liberals that they're protecting non-citizens. They're leaving them out to dry.
But also, non-citizens registering to vote is a felony in the first place, isn't it?
Well, that's right, and so you've actually got potentially two crimes here if a non-citizen has misled the government in order to become registered and then casts an illegal vote. Now, what often happens when non-citizens get registered is that they're registered through no fault of their own, because they're here legally. They go to get a driver's license at the DMV, right? They're a green card holder, and they bring the appropriate documentation. And somebody at the DMV just waves them through, tells them to check yes on the box that says they want to get registered, because they're trying to clear that line out. So the non-citizen who may not speak English gets caught up in that system and, again, becomes essentially an innocent victim. So that's why what we really need here is proof of citizenship at the front end of this process. Nobody should be able to get on the voter rolls without proving they are a citizen. A Gallup poll just from last week said that 83% of the American public backs that policy. But again, the Biden administration is opposing it. Democrats in Congress voted almost unanimously against a Republican bill called the SAVE Act to bring proof of citizenship. That would protect non-citizens, and it would protect the votes of legal citizens who are casting votes. But it's a policy that, again, is being fought by the same people who are now trying to get Virginia to add non-citizens to the rolls.
It's pretty crazy. Are you following what's going on in Bucks County, Pennsylvania? There's this week in Pennsylvania. It's bizarre. It's a little bizarre how Pennsylvania actually conducts its elections for a bunch of reasons. But you go to the polling place, you request your mail-in ballot early, and you can turn it in on the same day at the polling place, yet they call it a mail-in ballot. It's all so very confusing. But in Bucks County, Virginia, they've been turning voters away from the polls who wanted to vote. And they said, well, sorry, the lines are too long and we don't feel like working the polling place. So they've been rejecting people. So voter suppression has been going on in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I should point out that Bucks County is narrowly controlled right now by Democrats. It is considered a bellwether county in the state. And the Trump campaign has sued, the RNC has sued and successfully gotten the early voting period extended for another 3 days this week to accommodate all of the many voters who are trying to get those ballots in. What do you make of this, the voter suppression going on in Pennsylvania, Jason?
Well, I think this lawsuit's a win for the voters who haven't been able to cast their ballots, and again, we're in line when the polls were closed, so they've got a few extra days here to get those early votes in. I think that this puts the lie to the argument that the right is the one engaging in voter suppression. We're defending the right of every lawful citizen to cast a ballot, and when these sorts of problems happen, it's abundantly clear that the RNC and other grups on the right are stepping stepping in to make sure that those people who are caught up in those long lines are getting the right to vote. But look, Pennsylvania is one of these states that has not been able to undertake the sort of comprehensive election law reforms that we saw in places like Georgia, Florida, Texas, and Ohio, because they've had divided government, and the left hasn't wanted to take up the heavy task of making their elections work better. So they've got a decades-old election code. They've got a lot of things that could be done better. You've got conservative lawmakers that have been really carrying that banner, but they've hit resistance every step of the way. And what you're seeing in Bucks County is, I think, just a symptom of a problem that needs to be remedied with better policies like what we've seen adopted in conservative states like Georgia and Texas.
Yeah, it's just remarkable what's happening across the country right now. You just mentioned though that it is good to see the Trump campaign, the RNC step up. Have you noticed a change in the way that the right handles all of these battles? Are we at a different tempo right now?
Well, we are indeed at a much better place than we were 4 years ago in terms of litigation. The left has built what I call the election industrial complex. They've got virtually infinite sums of money and countless organizations that can bring lawsuits, essentially abusing courts to rewrite voting laws in the middle of elections for partisan gain. And the right has not had that level of infrastructure. In fact, we still don't, but we have more groups that are engaged than ever before. And what you're seeing actually in court is that more and more judges are rejecting the fringe arguments of the left, and conservatives are prevailing in the courts in defense of the rule of law. And in fact, just recently, you even saw in Pennsylvania, a very partisan Pennsylvania Supreme Court throw out the latest attempt by the left to get undated ballots to be counted. State law says you've got to sign and date your ballot, which is something we all do countless times,
Right.
but they say it's a burden on voting, and they want all those votes to be counted in violation of state law. The state Supreme Court threw out that argument, but I'll tell you what, the left is not stopping, because within days they filed yet another attempt at the same policy objective of getting those votes to count. And just today, we saw a court ruling come down in a different case ordering those ballots to be counted. So the left has a sue until blue policy, and the right is doing much, much better. But we can't take it for granted that the left is just going to give up. They're going to continue to sue as long as they think they get an advantage from it.
Sue until blue. That's a good line. Thank you very much. Jason Snead from the Honest Elections Project. Thanks for tracking it and helping us out today.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Of course, always. That's Jason Snead. One other piece of elections news for you that I wanted to hit. A University of Michigan student who is from China and not a U.S. citizen voted in Ann Arbor, Michigan on Sunday and is now being charged with 2 crimes, says the Detroit News, 6 days before the presidential election. The filing of the charges was revealed Wednesday, that's today, in a statement from Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. That woman's a real beauty, isn't she? I don't mean beautiful. I mean, she's out of control. And the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office, the press release didn't identify the student, but described him only as a non-U.S. citizen. The 19-year-old individual from China was legally present in the United States, but not a citizen, which meant he couldn't legally cast a ballot, according to information from the Secretary of State's office. He registered to vote on Sunday using his University of Michigan student ID and other documentation establishing residency in Ann Arbor. He signed a document identifying himself as a U.S. citizen, and his ballot was entered into a tabulator, according to the Secretary of State's office. You don't say. Wait a second. A foreign national deceived the government, claimed that they were a U.S. citizen, registered to vote, and then cast a ballot. The ballot was cast in an early voting site at the University of Michigan Museum of Art. Later, the UM student voter contacted the local clerk's office asking if he could somehow get his ballot back. That was his mistake. Whoops. The student's ballot is expected to count in the upcoming election, although it was illegally cast, because there's just no way for election officials to retrieve it once it's been put through a tabulator, according to 2 sources familiar with Michigan election laws. The setup is meant to prevent ballots from being tracked back to an individual voter. Who do you think the illegal Chinese foreign national voted for? Who stands to benefit from this crime? I'll let you think about it. All right, Matt is in Fredericksburg now, line 5. Matt joins us on the phone. Hello, Matt. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince.
Hey there.
Just had a point that in the federal census, they were trying to say you can't ask somebody their citizenship, but this kind of points out exactly the reason why it's so important. Our DMV can ask whether or not they're citizens, and then we can determine whether or not somebody's actually being miscounted or would potentially be committing a felony by trying to vote.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, the left fought very hard to exclude a citizenship question from the census because they were hoping to juice the numbers for congressional representation, meaning getting more Democrats into the House of Representatives, to juice the Electoral College numbers by giving blue states too many Electoral College votes based on how many Americans actually live there. They wanted to juice the numbers with the illegals. So they very much by design, Matt. That's an excellent point.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the call. Let me see here. Nick is calling in from Purcellville now on line 6. Hello, Nick. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I have a concern about this election. If all things stay the same like they were in 2020 and we've got blue states with a razor-thin margins in votes, and we want to challenge in court these maybe just challenge mail-in ballots in some states like Pennsylvania. Are we going to have standing in court like we did last time? And has anything been done to ensure that we do? Shouldn't we be petitioning the Supreme Court to make a decision on standing?
So,
I mean, I don't.
The critical thing, if you recall, the critical thing that so many of these challenges were told back in 2020 was that you should have filed this before the election. This after-election stuff, it's too late. You lack standing, as you point out. There was all sorts of technicalities that were getting these things thrown out of court. Right now, Republicans have really increased the number of lawsuits and all sorts of legal actions they've taken before the election. So the answer to your question, Nick, is yes, something meaningful has changed, which is there's an entire legal battlefield that's taking place all across the country, including in places like Bucks County, Virginia, which just got 3 extra days of early voting because the Trump campaign and the RNC said, no, you're not kicking our people out of line. They've got to vote. They've got to vote. And so the judge said, they're right. The left was suppressing the vote, and these voters get to keep showing up. So, yeah, there's a huge legal battle going on all across the country, and hopefully it results in a clean election, or at least clean enough to be credible. All right, stay with us. We've got Mark Hemingway coming up. So much more here on the Vince Coglianese Show.
News Talk.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Mark Hemingway will join us at 5:30 from Real Clear Investigations. We're going to talk to him about how Kamala Harris's campaign is trying to rig the social media platforms right now to create the false impression that she's running a great campaign. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, a lot of focus on election integrity, and rightfully so. Hey, that Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State, do you see today that she's raising concerns about Dominion voting machines? Do you see that? She was like, yeah, there's a big problem with them. She better be careful. She's going to get sued. They're going to take her down. Let's see. Jason in Kensington is calling in line 7. Hey, Jason, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, g'day, Vince. How you going, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Hey, it's just so funny to see the problems they have with elections over here, being in a modern sort of a Western country. I mean, in Australia, it's funny. This is just never an issue because, first of all, it's a national holiday. And then you've got, voting is compulsory. Plus, they've got very strict mail-in stipulations as far as mail-in votes. I mean, there's got to be a really good reason why you can't show up on the day to mail-in votes. So you get about a 98% turnout, and plus it's counted that day. I mean, pretty well within, that night You might choose one, and it's never a problem. It's just how it is. It's never an issue. I mean, it's just so funny how here they twist and turn all the laws and all this jargon about voting. It's just such a simple process that seems to be made so complex over here.
Yes. Yeah, the left is so crazy with it. They talk about it. They say, well, this is such a sacred responsibility. They make it seem like it's a religious act, getting involved in voting. Okay, so if it is, why don't you treat it like it's actually important? Why don't you treat it like it's sacred, like worth protecting and being credible and making sure that people are accurately counted and that no one else can water down their vote? And the answer to that is very simple, Jason. The left is convinced that if the vote is harder to assess, that it's going to work out to their benefit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so much. Like I said, they sort of work it around cheating basically, and what's kind of bad is like this whole citizenship thing. I mean, one of the things about voting is and becoming a citizen is to get that right, and they've just watered that whole thing down. So where is the incentive to become a citizen and do all the right things to be able to vote? I mean, it's just so cancelling out for the people who have gone through the trouble to do that.
Well, you went through the trouble, Jason. You're an American citizen.
Yeah.
And so if the left is allowing foreign nationals who are not citizens to cast ballots in the election, that means they're disenfranchising you, an American voter.
Yeah, and it's like, what if we've done the work to get there? You have to as well. It's almost like a sort of prove your loyalty sort of thing, So that's part of it. And
right. You want to be a citizen, start with following the rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I'll hopefully we'll get a good result on next week.
And the key to getting it, if we want to get it on the same timetable that Australia gets it. Australia does things that are absolutely crazy, by the way, but it turns out voting is one thing that they're doing right, and maybe we could copy that or copy what France is doing, like normal voting habits. And if we did that, we'd be able to get a result from every state on election night. There's no reason that every state can't be like Florida or every state can't be like Virginia. These are states who are able to quickly process these votes and get the answer out. But the upside, Jason, is if President Trump does to the electoral map what he did in 2016, which is create new pathways, then we could actually have an answer on election night. And hopefully we don't have it drag out the way it went in 2020.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just hope he definitely makes inroads in some of these states where he traditionally doesn't do that well. It'd be great because the Republicans just need to sort of change their whole sort of persona, really, and he's doing it to them.
For sure. He's had a lot of success. In fact, there's these headlines coming out today, and I don't know how long it's going to hold, but did you see that President Trump and the Republicans are leading in early voting in New Jersey? Did you see this?
That was pretty encouraging, and I was surprised too to find out that the age group of people that supported Trump, that something like 50-something% were in the age groups from 18 to 40, which I found pretty surprising. So but that was pretty encouraging too. So I think the whole Joe Rogan thing and all this new sort of stuff coming out with Trump has sort of been favorable to him, especially with the younger crowd anyway.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that Rogan thing, J.D. Vance, do we know, Corey? He did the interview, or he was supposed to anyway. J.D. Vance was supposed to do a Joe Rogan interview today, so we may have that coming out too. But you'll notice, Jason, that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris have not done that. In fact, the word from Joe Rogan earlier this week is that the Harris campaign said they would only do the Rogan interview under very strict conditions. One, Rogan has to travel to them. No other guest has ever made that demand. Donald Trump, President Trump, went and did the show in Texas. You have to travel to Kamala Harris, and she's only going to give you an hour. And you know what that means, Jason. She's going to give them the old Fox News switcheroo. She'll show up 15 minutes late and then say, sorry, we've got to leave 15 minutes early. And in other words, hey, Joe Rogan, I'll do your show if you change the entire format of your show.
Yeah, and plus here's the questions, by the way. So, these are the questions you'll ask me.
Yeah, and these are the questions. Rogan didn't indicate that demand, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually do that. All right, Jason, thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks, mate.
That's Jason in Kensington, proud American citizen, doesn't like watching people be disenfranchised. I don't like that either. Yeah, Trump is leading in the early vote in New Jersey, at least as late as last night. Early in-person Republican voters in deep blue New Jersey are slightly outpacing their Democratic neighbors. Data shows, according to FoxNews.com. Early in-person voting kicked off in the Garden State on Saturday with 247,000 residents casting their votes over the weekend alone. Republican early in-person voters have taken the lead in the state with 144,105 Republican votes cast compared to Democrats' 139,524 votes. State data analyzed by an AP elections researcher found as of Tuesday. Quote, "What we're seeing is phenomenal," said Jack Ciattarelli. That's the New Jersey Republican gubernatorial candidate. "Republicans are finally embracing the opportunity to vote early," he said. "The return rate on vote-by-mail ballots has been fantastic. Local Republican organizations are doing a great job in getting the word out." Now, of course, does this mean that we're going to see a huge Republican victory in New Jersey? No. But it does mean that this is a story that we've seen in just about every state that's begun early voting. Whoa, what's going on with Republican early votes? That's a good story. Also, President Trump thinks that it's a big deal that Virginia has had so much success in early voting, so much so that he's showing up here on Saturday in Salem, Virginia, the final weekend of the election. He is in Virginia. I'm sure he'll be doing a lot more traveling, not just Virginia, but that's a big sign. Their internal polling is clearly telling them that this is a state worth exerting some effort in the final hours ahead of Election Day. The trick, of course, is getting people to show up to vote. If you know anybody in your life who has not yet done that, please, for the love of all that is good, get them out. Get them to cast that ballot. Now's the time. Let's see here. I've got all sorts of things coming in. I've got Sam in Centerville now on line 5. Hello, Sam. You're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Hey, Vince. First time speaking with you. I love that point that you just made on Virginia. That's exactly it. I can tell you, I've been showing my pride for our amazing candidate for about a week, driving around in my truck with my flag, and I can tell you, Virginia is very, very much in play, right? Just from a quick pulse on the road of the thumbs up and the honks and whatnot. So, just wanting to encourage all Virginians to do so. Also, on the note of the non-citizens vote,
yeah,
I can tell you as a child of Coptic Christian immigrants, which shout out to President Trump for the shout out yesterday. That's a big deal for us. Legal immigration, my parents came in the 70s, is something that is near and dear to immigrants, and we fight for the right to get that citizenship for that vote. And the fact that they're just giving it out, and the most beautiful part of it is, these rulings, they're saying the quiet part out loud is that Dems do apparently want to give away the vote, right, and cheat. So, for what that's worth, just wanted to share that. And,
I love that.
Encourage
Sam,
all those in Virginia. Yep.
Sam, I'm with you. Yeah, everybody's got to get out and vote. So you said you have a flag on your truck. I assume it's a Trump flag.
Yes, 100%.
And what does it say on it? What do we see? Is it just a simple "Make America Great Again"? What kind of flag do you have?
Yeah, the Make America Great Again, the red version. Again, just a simple show of, what I think it says is we have confidence and enthusiasm in our candidate.
Yeah.
And they don't, right? And I think that's the root of the few thumbs downs, or sometimes I'll get an outrageous, TDS Democrat, they'll lean out the window. They're not proud of their candidate. They know what they have, right? And I think that's kind of, call it jealousy manifesting itself in actions, right?
Yeah,
so,
So have you done this before, Sam, in prior elections? Do you have anything to give us a comparison on?
I sure have, and as I'm speaking to you right now, just got a truck full of thumbs up, actually 2 just now. But yes, I am active precinct captain in my local area, and very, very much involved in the political.
So in previous cycles, if you flew the Trump flag on your truck, were you getting this kind of reaction you're seeing now?
No, to be honest with you, no. Last election cycle obviously was unique. I did do it last time, and there were definitely definitely a sense of more negative energy around our candidate. And, for what it's worth, this time around, it's just a different energy.
Yeah.
Specifically coming as a child of Egyptian immigrants, I could tell you the immigrant and minority population here in Northern Virginia is fired up and is coming out big for President Trump.
To a level we've never seen before, actually. You can detect it everywhere, can't you, Sam? Every interview I see, every rally I see, every gathering of people who are going to the polls, I'm seeing, I would say, the most colorfully diverse group of people supporting President Trump we've seen in any of his presidential elections.
That's exactly it. And I think, the true big tent party is really manifesting itself. And it's shocking to them. And I get it. But, yeah, in such a short period of time, we have seen, the real big tent party come out and people are starting to wake up. And, for what that's worth, I couldn't be any happier.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work. And enjoy the interactions with your fellow man out there as you fly that Trump flag on the truck. Thank you, Sam.
All right, thank you.
That's Sam's experience is also Corey and Ganamort's experience. So Corey's been out there with the Trump flag, save democracy, vote Trump 2024, and he's got a lot has happened this year. Corey is practically a vintage flag, isn't it, Corey? Corey, get on the microphone, can you? So it's practically a vintage flag because Corey's got the mugshot from Atlanta on his flag. Did you end up adding a Trump July 13th after he got shot flag to the boat? I can't hear him. Hold up. Okay, we'll get him back on here. We're having some technical difficulties piping Corey in. Normally, we would like him to stay quiet. No speaking, Corey. No talking. No, Corey's great. But Corey's been experiencing the same thing, which is he goes out there and he's getting the biggest reaction you can possibly imagine on the Potomac River. He's driving a pontoon boat with a massive flag, and he's got person after person on the shore and on boats reacting positive. It's a weird thing. And let me make one other point about D.C. while we're on the subject and voting. Look, I know that to the extent that any of us have a conversation about what's achievable, it's mostly in Virginia and it's somewhat in Maryland. And then D.C. just gets written off as, well, that's about as corrupt as it gets. It's just all Democrats all the way down. I'm telling you, if you are a D.C. voter and you are a Republican, if you would like to stop the madness, even if the outcome is what we all know it's going to be, you should still register a protest vote. You should still show up in the numbers. Like, I want to see the D.C. results demonstrate an unusual percentage of people who oppose the ruling regime, who say, I'm not going to take it anymore. I don't care if this doesn't result in a change in D.C., but I will express how outraged I am about the direction of this country. So if you're a D.C. voter, register your opposition. It's a great way to do it. Make people notice. I want election analysts to pause when they get to the D.C. line and they go, boy, that's an unusual result in D.C. Let's do that. All right, Scott's calling in from Castleton now, line 7. Hello, Scott. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just want to chime in about the enthusiasm part because, like, in 2020, I had a Trump flag and my American flag, and I was very enthusiastic, wearing my MAGA hat to the polling, voting place, and I just felt that the enthusiasm was really big in 2020. Now out here, it's double. I mean, people that have big displays before have bigger ones this year. There's more of them. People that would just normally have a yard sign have a big sign and a yard sign. Personally, I have a couple Trump flags, one for American flag.
Yep.
Got my truck flag with the fist pump picture.
I love it.
People are beeping and putting their fists in the air, and it's a lot more enthusiastic this round.
I love it, Scott. Yeah, I think what's happened is people are emboldened. They're encouraged. They've seen President Trump get shot, and they said, if that man can stand up and say, fight, 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 then I can fight, fight, fight. And they also realize this is sort of the last chance, isn't it? President Trump said this is his final election, win or lose. And I think people are saying, all right, fine, I'm in. There's a lot of that going on across the country. We'll see if it results in a win next week. Mark Hemingway joins us in the next hour. Stay with us. Your call's ahead.